gazing through the window at the world outside, wondering why Ozzy Osbourne sings like this.
Here we are at New Sense. I'm Pratibha Raman, and we are doing the Starters show here. And this week we have with us Rupen Paul, who's a multimedia content creator of sorts, a stand-up comedian on stage, a podcast creator as well, and he has a touch of humor in everything, in catching all the absurdities in life that a common man faces and brings it to light. So, thank you so much for joining us. But before
My
I
pleasure.
actually touch upon the many faceted characteristics of yours, I did come across one of your posts which said news is a scam.
Journalists, what are they? 90% of journalism is politics. I think we can agree
safely
on that.
agree. Unless you have a specialization,
Like
like you
Like
have
in politics.
No, like you have dedicated. Like I'm only a weather journalist.
You have a particular aversion to journalists, is it? So, as a journalist, I just thought I have to question you.
Yeah, that's actually a podcast episode that I did with a fellow comic whom I do a podcast called Frustrations. And we talk about things that frustrate us. And I think that was just about the time of the lockdown. And to a certain extent, I felt like, we had stopped paying attention to the news because it seemed like it was only bad news. And fair enough, like, why would you want to care about good news? So the thing is, good news no one cares about, right? We like get to something that's really, if you only, like, you as a journalist, you only talk about things that are positive, right? Then you will get so much of flack for it, because you'll be like, why aren't you covering real issues? And then when you cover real issues, right, like, people will be like, why are you depressing the crap out of all of us? So it's just both ways you lose. I really feel sad for, like, journalists.
So we are sandwiched between the two sides. But one thing for sure, you can actually watch News Sense because we are trying to at least give you news that is essential, relevant. So I hope we succeed in that.
Yeah, you guys are doing a good job. Very good luck to you. Yeah,
Thank
and just
you.
the essential things, like you mentioned. I think that's really
right.
important. I think that's what we all need, right? If we just
Absolutely.
had the essential things, we'd have enough information to make our choices.
Absolutely. So before I actually, get onto the other side, so from IT professional to, content creation, how do you balance the two sides of you?
Right. I luckily quit my IT job some time ago, but
Okay.
I still do have a corporate job. I still do have a corporate 9 to 5.
Mhm.
But I think I mean, like, if I have to answer your question between balancing the two, I think it's just a matter of priorities. Like, what is really important, and you just do that first. And automatically all the other things finds its own time in your schedule.
But such an unconventional profession. I mean, how did your family react? How did your friends react?
Friends were obviously happy, right? And they were all they were proud until they came and saw a show where there were only like 4 people in the audience. And they were like 2, right? They were like, oh, this has its downsides too. It's not that glamorous, right? Parents, the thing is, they saw it coming for a long time, right? And like, I always wanted to do something in the creative space. And before this I was doing like music, and that didn't work out, so I thought I had to do something with respect to comedy. So they saw it coming for a long time, and the good thing is I've never taken any money from them for a long time. So they're like, as long as he's making his own money and he's not taking money from us, we are happy. And of course, like, 2 articles in the newspaper really helps.
I'm sure I'll do my bit as well.
Thank you.
How do you think? I mean, are there any takers for podcasts? Because don't you think that it's very in its nascent stage as yet in India?
No, I don't think so. I think we're in a stage which is more advanced than what we think it is. I've got good traction on a podcast, on the personal podcast that I started called Right Room. And I also, because of this podcast, it's so interesting, because of this podcast that I started on my own 2 years ago when I quit my job, I now got a job which pays me more than my IT job, where I do a podcast. So I think we are really, really doing well. And the listenership, like the podcast that I host, apart from this, part of my job, it's called FinShots Daily. And I think right now we even beat BBC in the charts on Apple. So we are at a very advanced. We are not a really advanced stage, but more advanced than what most people think podcasting is in India.
That was the original cross-country marathon, walkathon.
10K.
That was the original pinkathon.
That's also why Gandhiji is not wearing a shirt.
Yeah, and I'm sure over there, Milind
After
Soman's
walking
dad.
sometime, he was like,
Milind Soman's dad found his like running voice over there.
Also, with respect to stand-up comedy on stage, what are the kind of challenges that you face? One issue would definitely be the freedom of speech, right? With several of these stand-up comedians facing sedition charges and whatnot.
Yeah, I really think that is an issue, right? In light of whatever happened with Munawar and whatever happened to a lot of people. But I think that's a nice challenge. I really like this challenge, right? I like this challenge where there are so many boundaries and there are people who are waiting to get at us, and you still have to tell them something to make them uncomfortable. It's also the same reason why I like doing clean comedy to a lot of extent, right? Like, it's easy to say something nasty and shock you. But how about I shock you by being clean?
Like, I remember when my sister got married, this is how the process of arranging marriage started, okay? When she was 22, randomly one day my parents said, okay, now we have to go for all the weddings that we can go for. And after some time, I was like, why are we going for so many weddings? And my dad said, no,
because that means it's you're stripping it down to the basics, right? And I like this challenge. I really like this challenge in India, that there's so much of freedom of speech restrictions, and I'm still all of us are still doing our best to make people uncomfortable.
What is the most challenging or the most memorable moment when you were on stage?
I think the most challenging and the most memorable, those are two different things. I think the most memorable, I think, is one show that I did in Pune. It was just hard to get to that show. It took me like a long commute. And the thing is, the previous night I had a lot of shows, so I came back home and I had to take the bus because I was quite broke at that time to Pune. And then I had slept in the bus, and after 4 hours I realized I was still at Bombay, right? And because the bus was just going around collecting people because they didn't have enough passengers, and I had to rush my way, and I found a cab, and with all the little money that I had, I put in a taxi and got myself to Pune after a really long struggle, and reached the show a little bit late, right? And I was working with a lot of big comics at that point, right? And the show worked out so well, right? And so it made like sense, like, even though there's so much of hardship in getting there to where you want to be, eventually it'll all work out if you just keep showing up and you keep believing in what you're doing. So I think that was the most memorable. The most challenging, I would say, was the last year. I just filed my taxes like a while ago, right? And I quit my IT job to do like just full time. And it was hard. It was not easy because the thing is,
With the pandemic,
it was just anxious. A little before that, I would say the pandemic, of course, was bad. But even before that, because when you're working, doing something like this, right? You don't have any stability as such. You don't have a schedule. You don't have anything, and you're constantly hustling. And when you're not hustling, you feel bad because you feel like, I should be working. Why am I not working? But there's not so much of work that you have, so you create your own work, and you create new projects, and you create new things for you to work, right? And I just did that, and I just tried to expand. And when I filed my tax returns, I just realized I've made more money than I made in the previous IT job. So I think it was very rewarding to see that.
Absolutely, it's inspirational as well. You also said that you dabble with music and you're an ardent fan of music.
I am.
But you're really averse to singing, I guess, right?
Yeah. It's
Gazing through the window at the world outside, wondering why Ozzy Osbourne sings like this.
Are you an Ozzy Osbourne fan? You seem to make fun of the singer, though.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty cool guy, pretty badass, pretty hardcore. I don't know if you know this, but you know how we landed in this pandemic by allegedly someone eating a bat, right? Ozzy
That's
Osbourne
right, yes.
ate a bat a long time ago.
Correct.
And he
I
survived.
remember reading that. Who's your hero, your idol in life?
Like a couple of people like Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, and yeah, I think they're the main people who artistically, are inspirations.
Great. Are you also a fitness freak apart from being a music fan?
Yep.
Can you give us a tip or two to lose weight? I've been looking at that for a very long time.
I think you shouldn't worry about that, losing weight or even really looking fit. I think the reason why I do that, it just makes your mind a little more strong.
What would be your advice to many of those who want to try their hand at stand-up comedy, but are, there is some amount of hesitation for them to get into it full swing?
I feel the advice is like the one thing that will keep you going and the one thing that will get you started is if you really have something to say. And like you said, right, like as a journalist, when you see something and be like, I need to cover this, right? If you feel like that as a person, like you need to speak out about this, then I think you should just start, and that will keep you going because you will never run out of things to speak about.
You are thoroughly Bangalore bred, right, from Christ University and stuff like that. What are your memories of Bangalore and Christ College, and how have the two of them changed?
Bangalore, I think I really don't know, because like I don't like people saying like, hey, Bangalore used to be nice a long time ago and now it's crap. I think it's still awesome. So I don't have any fond memories that were really good in the past. I think it's still good. But in terms of Christ, you said in Christ College, I don't know. I think that college, in a weird way, saved my life because I think everything that I started creatively and all the friends that I made till today that kind of pushed me into a lot of what I am into today as a person. I met them all in Christ. So yeah, I'm very happy about that. Of course, it's not a perfect college. There are a lot of flaws also about it. But yeah.
Okay. Before I end the session, one last question. What is that one issue that you want the country to really focus on, talk about, debate upon?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to talk about for the people we all are right now, right? Not like, we have different categories and sadly different economic classes in India, because that's how things are. But for the people probably listening to this, I think the one thing that we have to talk about is probably we already come with so much of bias because of our families, right? We have a lot of things that have just been carried over from our parents to us, right? So many problems that they had, right? And which we have just carried forward, or we've just unknowingly just, carried through, and we're going to carry through to the next generation. But some of these are so dysfunctional, make us such dysfunctional people, right? And I think it's just time for our generation, at least, since we had the privilege of doing a good education, so that we take things forward, I think we should pause and see, like, did our parents do everything correctly? And did the previous generation do everything correctly? And to what extent am I going to respect that, and to what extent am I going to carry that forward is something that you have to debate, which is something that I personally have been trying to do.
Throw biases out.
Throw the biases that you've inherited.
Right. Okay, that's a takeaway for me. Thank you so much for this, Rupen, and continue the good work that you do. Keep people smiling all through.
Thanks so much, Pratibha. Thank you.